You know, if you've been out driving at night anytime recently, you've probably noticed a pretty massive shift out on the roads. Just take a look at oncoming traffic and it really hits you. The night simply isn't yellow anymore. For literally almost a century, our highways and our back roads were lit up by this soft, warm, kind of amber glow. But almost overnight, it feels like that familiar hue has been systematically wiped out, completely replaced by this blazing, crisp, almost clinical white light. It's definitely a shared experience we're all navigating right now, and today we're going to uncover exactly why this happened.
So that brings us to the core mystery we're unraveling today. Why did the entire automotive industry collectively decide to just kill off the yellow headlight? Okay, let's dive into this because, it's incredibly easy to write this off as just another modern design fad, right? Car manufacturers just wanting their newer models to look sleeker or more aggressive, maybe a bit more high-tech. But the truth? It's actually far more profound than that.
The stakes here are genuinely high. The shift from yellow to white is absolutely not a cosmetic trend. It is a massive leap in physics, biology, and safety. What we're really looking at here is a story about fundamental science. It's a total evolution in how we generate light, how our bodies react to it, and how we engineer solutions to keep us all safe at high speeds when it's pitch black outside. All right, Section 1, the filament versus the chip. Let's look at the anatomy of these bulbs. There is a really stark contrast in how these two technologies actually generate light. Think about the classic halogen bulb. It contains this tiny tungsten filament wire. Electricity passes through the wire, heating it up to an extreme 4,500 degrees Fahrenheit until it literally glows. Because it relies on all that intense heat, it naturally gives off a warm yellowish light which sits around 3,000 Kelvin on the color temperature scale. But modern cars? They use an LED or light-emitting diode. There's no fragile wire here and absolutely no reliance on extreme heat. Instead, electricity passes through a tiny semiconductor chip, moving negative electrons around and directly releasing energy as pure light particles, photons. Because this whole process is entirely electronic, engineers can tune it perfectly to a 6,000 Kelvin rating, which gives us that crisp, cool white light. 95%. Okay, that is a staggering number. And what it represents is the amount of energy going into a traditional halogen bulb that is entirely wasted as heat. Yeah, 95%. Because halogens rely on thermal radiation to glow, only 5% of the energy you're feeding them actually turns into usable light. Actually, when you think about it, it's basically a tiny space heater that just happens to give off a little light. It is an incredibly inefficient system.
So, why does this extreme energy efficiency matter out in the real world? Well, a standard halogen low beam sucks up about 55 watts of power. A comparable modern LED chip produces a beam that is twice as bright using just 25 watts. Now, in a traditional gas-powered car, drawing less power just means less strain on your alternator, which, gives you a slight bump to your fuel economy. But in the modern era of electric vehicles, this is absolutely critical. Saving 30 watts per bulb might not sound like a huge deal, but every single watt saved by your headlights is a watt kept right there in the main battery pack, directly maximizing your EV's driving range.
And then, comparing their lifespans reveals another massive gap. Because halogens host that super fragile wire vibrating at extreme temperatures, they burn out constantly, giving you maybe, 1,000 hours of life? LEDs, on the other hand, have absolutely no fragile moving parts. A well-engineered automotive LED can easily last up to 50,000 hours. To put that into plain English, these new white LED headlights are very likely going to outlast the entire operational lifespan of the car itself. Seriously, you may never have to change a headlight bulb again.
Moving right along to Section 2, Biology and Highway Safety. Let's talk about human vision.
Okay, here is kind of a wild plot twist for you. Human eyes actually evolved to see best in 6,000 K broad daylight. When you threw a warm 3,000 K yellow light onto a pitch-black road, your brain has to work incredibly hard to interpret shapes and shadows and depth, but that 6,000 Kelvin white LED light we were just talking about, it directly mimics natural midday sunlight. By using white light, we are literally feeding our eyes the exact color temperature they are biologically hardwired to process effortlessly.
And this biological match translates into real-world life-saving advantages. First off, white light reflects so much more vividly off of road markings, painted lines, and traffic signs, giving you incredible visual contrast. Second, it dramatically enhances your peripheral vision. Studies actually show that human peripheral vision detects movement significantly faster under white light. I mean, imagine a deer or a pedestrian stepping off a dark curb 20 yards ahead of you. White light buys you those crucial, life-saving extra milliseconds of reaction time.
And finally, because the edges and shapes on the road are just crisper, your eye muscles simply don't have to strain, which drastically reduces driver fatigue on those long night drives.
Which brings us to Section 3, the glare crisis. Because, yeah, we have to address the dark side of this.
We really have to look at the downside of this technology impartially. The blinding glare from modern headlights is a massive, highly validated issue. You see, the human eye perceives high-Kelvin, bluish-white light as incredibly sharp and harsh compared to that old warm yellow. This high-frequency light can easily cause temporary flash blindness. We've all been there, right? If you're driving a low-riding sedan and an oncoming lifted truck or a large SUV with misaligned LEDs points its beams directly into your cabin, your retinas are just totally overwhelmed. It's a genuine highway hazard, and it's something the industry really had to figure out how to address.
So how are we fixing this? Section 4, fixing the blindness. Let's look at the engineering solutions.
It really all comes down to how the light is aimed. Older halogen bulbs required large, bowl-shaped reflector housings. Think of it kind of like a shiny mirror bowl that just bounces diffused light everywhere, basically hoping enough of it hits the actual road. But modern LEDs, they utilize projector housings. So instead of throwing light everywhere, projectors tightly organize the beam into a very specific, highly controlled shape.
Let me walk you through exactly how a projector works to save your eyes. It's basically a 4-step mechanical process. First, you've got your super bright LED light source, which bounces off an elliptical reflector to focus the beam. But step 3, this is the real hero, the cutoff shield. This is a physical metal shutter that literally blocks the top half of the light beam, just chops it right off. Finally, a condenser lens magnifies whatever light is left. This whole setup creates an incredibly sharp, crisp line of light. Everything below the line is brilliant white daylight for the driver, and everything above the line is completely dark. This keeps that ultra-bright light safely aimed at the asphalt, completely out of the eyes of oncoming traffic.
But the industry is pushing this even further into the high-tech future with adaptive matrix LEDs. Instead of just relying on a physical shield, matrix systems use software and front-facing cameras to actively track oncoming cars in real time. The headlight itself is made up of hundreds of tiny LED pixels. As a car approaches you, the computer automatically turns off only the specific blocks of light that would hit that other driver's eyes. The rest of your high beams, they stay fully on, keeping the surrounding road perfectly illuminated while casting this dynamically moving shadow right over the oncoming car. It is an absolute game changer for nighttime visibility and safety.
So the yellow light didn't die because of some passing styling trend. It died because physics, biology, and efficiency demanded something vastly superior. We now have headlights that last the entire lifetime of the car, use a mere fraction of the power, and give our brains exactly the daylight visibility they inherently crave. But it certainly hasn't been a flawless transition out there on the dark roads. So I want to leave you with this to chew on during your next nighttime commute. Do you love the incredible, crisp visibility of modern white LEDs, or are you just tired of being blinded by oncoming traffic? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this illuminated the science behind your daily drive. Catch you next time.